Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Hillian. I'm your acting mayor this month, and I'm standing in for Mayor Wells, who's out of town at the minute. And I'd like to welcome you all and appreciate the fact that you've come out to join us in this conversation tonight. It's really good to see so many familiar faces, and I'd like to acknowledge that we have three of your other city councillors in the hall here with us. I see Councillor McCollum, Councillor Moran, and Councillor Cole-Hamilton. Make sure you take a moment to let them know what you think about various projects, how much you like the idea of the new bridge and all that sort of thing. That was a joke. So the city, on behalf of the city, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that the land to which this downtown vitalization local area plan applies, the land on which we gather now and where we live, and all the lands and waters within Courtenay's boundaries are on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. Tonight, we're inviting you to a public conversation on the future of our downtown, a place that I know we all care about. The Downtown Vitalization Local Area Plan process responds to a couple of key council priorities, one of which is to develop a local area plan for the Harmston Avenue Civic Precinct and to implement the Duncan Commons Downtown Courtenay Playbook. Just out of curiosity, how many people here were around back in 2016 when we talked about the Downtown Playbook? That's great, yeah. Lots of good ideas that we're finally seeing some movement on. We want to hear from you on how to shape and implement approaches to achieve these priorities. So the boards that you see around the room and the following presentation provide specific ideas on how to positively accommodate growth and change in our downtown. Presented ideas are in pursuit of the established vision for downtown Courtenay to be the local, citywide, and regional center of cultural, civic, culinary, economic, and public life with the widest range of activities and attractions for residents and visitors day and night throughout the year. However, this is also an opportunity to evaluate the vision for the downtown and ensure it continues to respond to our community's aspirations and needs. So tonight, please talk to staff, consultants, and the elected officials to learn more and to share your ideas. And please spread the word of the opportunity to your friends and neighbors to participate in our online public survey that's available on the project webpage for the next 3 weeks. I believe it's on the screen up here, is it? Okay. Yeah, it says it's on the web page behind me. All right. The project webpage is also a great way to stay informed for the planning and engagement process following tonight's engagement event. City of Courtenay is also engaging with interest holders in the community, businesses, community organizations, and large landowners in the downtown to learn their perspectives and ideas for partnership and implementation. And I understand there was an excellent session with some of those interest groups earlier this afternoon. Foundational to all this work is the engagement that city staff, mayor, and council are and will be continuing with Comox First Nation Chief and Council through a separate government-to-government engagement process. So that's it from me. Thanks very much for your attention. I'd now like to turn things over to Marianne Wade, who is our city's Director of Development Services. Marianne.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Welcome everybody tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Marianne Wade. I'm the Director of Development Services, and we're so thrilled to see so many energized people out here tonight and thrilled to have a presentation and engage with you tonight. I wanted to introduce the team to you that has been very much involved in putting together the boards and compiling all the previous documents and bringing it forward tonight for our discussion. I wanted to welcome Ron and Aaron Bird from Ekistics, who have been the lovely people who have been producing the boards with the nice graphics on them. And I wanted to introduce True Taylor, who's with Modus, who's our community engagement specialist. And I wanted to welcome Dan Casey from Urban Systems, who's helping us with transportation. I wanted to welcome Lee Malo, who's helping us with some economics and from Globalnomics. And I wanted to also introduce our staff. We're going to have staff around the room tonight, so after we complete the presentation, please go to the boards and ask questions of staff. We're here to answer your questions. And there's ways that you can engage on the boards. There's ways you can engage online with a survey. And so we're going to take all the information that we gather tonight, and we'll be compiling it and coming back and reporting back to council. And then we will be preparing a plan that we will come back and engage with the community on. So I was going to ask for staff if they could put up their hands, because there's a lot of people spread out the room. Can staff put up their hands? There we are. And so make sure that you have, that everybody is around, and please go up and make sure that you ask questions of them. Staff is here to hear and listen and provide any information. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Nancy Gothard, our Manager of Community and Law and Sustainability Planning, to give a brief overview before we do the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So just before I get into the presentation, which actually is Ron Berg who will be presenting, I'd like to provide some context to why this planning process for the downtown and why now. The ideas you see tonight build upon existing planning efforts over the years to offer more detail and implementation support to the vision for downtown. So I just want to remind people of the work we've already done over the last 10 years plus. So about 10 years ago, that downtown playbook that Councillor Hillian mentioned was the first time we as a community looked at defining a specific vision for the downtown. The identified goals of that plan to continue to inform this work, and you're going to see these themes. It was organized for success, establish downtown as the community's heart, encourage more downtown residents. A lot about tonight is about housing. Make it easier to get to and be in the downtown, and celebrate and connect to the rivers, which is another major theme. And then in 2022, the adoption of the new citywide official community plan reconfirmed these goals, turned them into policy, and established the vision of downtown as the location of significant growth to support its function as the local, citywide, and regional center. And I know a number of you participated in that official community plan right in this room. Can I get a show of hands for the OCP process? Were there people who participated in that particular process? Maybe, okay, more on the downtown playbook, good to know. But some of those themes again, more housing, more space for special events and gatherings, more access to and integration with the Solom and Puntledge rivers, and better opportunities to get to circulate within the downtown by foot transit and cycling in particular. So those themes, again, they are now in more implementation ideas showing up on the boards. Now, one thing we really want to share with you is that since 2022, the OCP, we've learned that we're growing as a community more rapidly than we thought. Turns out lots of people think this is a great place to live, not just us. And the downtown is a key area already identified for growth in the OCP. So that need to think in more detail of how that growth looks and feels, and what characteristics of our community we preserve and which we improve. All those considerations are more timely now than ever. So we do invite you to share how well the ideas tonight are achieving those goals, and tell us if we've missed anything. And I know this community is full of passion and creativity, and we want to hear it. So I'm going to now present to Ron, introduce Ron here, who will be presenting more details of the boards you're seeing tonight. So thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Nancy. Very excited to be here. I think it's great to see you all here, and it's really, it's an amazing opportunity for you to just see what's been developing over the past year in terms of just some ideas that we can begin to present to you for feedback. A lot of you have been circulating around to see the boards already, and a lot of the illustrations and concepts that you've been looking at are really for illustrative purposes, but they're really trying to express possibilities and sometimes even kind of extreme positions. So, looking at it one way or looking at it another way. So really, it's the process is to elicit feedback. It's for you to be able to have a voice and to give your opinions and try and direct our path as we move forward. So I'm not going to try and talk for too long, but I did want to take you through just the framework and a bit of the background that has generated these ideas. So again, as has already been stated, you know, the aim of this is to really kind of look at this comprehensive downtown area, look at ways we can be creating more vibrancy, inclusiveness, how we can improve the downtown and what's already good in the downtown, really find solutions that are anchored in this place and in this community and that are supported by the community and the local culture. We all know that housing is a critical need across Canada in every municipality, and we've been working in a lot of different places in BC over the past few years, and it's a critical issue everywhere, and all forms of housing are needed. In transportation, we know that's a key issue in the downtown area for Courtenay, as we have some primary movement that needs to kind of connect from one end of town to another, and there's good ways and challenging ways to manage transportation. So we're working with Dan and Urban Systems to evaluate and look at ways that we can manage and move through downtown in a better way. And then of course we want all of this to celebrate and build community, all these proposals and activities that we're looking at. So the boundaries were kind of developed over some discussion with staff and mayor and council, and there was some real logic to kind of looking at things all the way from the river up to the Rotary Trail, and then kind of on the fringe of Old Orchard, and then down south around 10th. And the north and south boundaries are harder to define because they're not defined by a river or a trail, but they were defined for this study area. And beyond these areas, the OCP is also going to be addressing some of those particular issues related to the neighborhoods to the north and the south. As Nancy already mentioned, we're building on a lot of work that's been done in the past, and I think the quantity of information is representative of all the work that's been done in the past, and we're here presenting a much more comprehensive kind of view of the downtown, really with the goal of moving towards projects that are implementable and really looking at creating policy that's going to create some meaningful change and growth in the downtown. So we have gone through some engagement already, and some of the key things that were heard was recognize the cultural district as a focal point in the downtown. That's a significant area already, and I think there can be some improvements to what exists there. As we talked about, support housing, support local business and development of local business. Really utilizing the strength of the groups and the community that exist here, bringing people downtown. And what does that mean? What do we do to enhance the downtown, make it more accessible, deal with issues of parking and access and movement and increased amenities, especially if we densify downtown. Enhance the green spaces. I think there's a sense that there's maybe not enough green spaces and plazas in the downtown, and what can we do to improve that? And then of course aligning with the plans and the work that have been done already. Just a quick overview of the timeline. We began this work really kind of last summer, fall, where we were looking at our SWOT analysis, our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and sort of evaluating the whole downtown area to see where the opportunities are and the constraints. We went through that phase 1 engagement. We're at the phase 2 open house, where we're eliciting feedback now, and there'll be further opportunities as we move forward, refine the plan, working towards a final plan later in the year. So, as you've seen on the boards, if you've circulated already, we've looked at the whole area comprehensively, and we've also looked at it in a series of districts just to better manage the unique characteristics of these different neighborhoods. So we're looking at reimagining the riverfront, and I think with the changes that are happening in the riverfront, with the work already underway for revitalizing the area of the river north of the 5th Street Bridge in terms of its riparian areas and kind of taking out the dike and creating a much more much better habitat and environmental zone along the river. So that's one move, but what are other moves we can do to bring the public to the waterfront to enjoy the water, both north and south of the bridge? So what are the opportunities there? Downtown core already has a lot going for it, but there are things we could potentially do to revitalize or vitalize and strengthen the downtown area. And there's key components or key elements that we're looking at in the downtown as areas that we can focus on. Fitzgerald is an interesting street. It's a pretty busy street. It's a wide street. There's been some good improvements with bike lanes. I think there's some perception with the wideness of the street. It sort of acts a little bit like a dividing element between the Harmston neighborhood and the downtown. Are there some things we can do with Harmston that can turn it into a street that sort of brings those neighborhoods together rather than sort of becomes a divider? So we're looking at some different opportunities to do that. And then the whole Harmston Park, the park itself and the surrounding neighborhood, I think there's some great opportunity to, again, look at how that might change over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. There's some real attention going to be focused on the park and park programming in the very near future, which you can also engage with. There's actually a link on the Harmston Park boards that can give you information about how to further engage in programming of that park. But we have some ideas that we presented on the boards, and we'll briefly walk through tonight. Transportation. So that's a big issue, and we've heard this quite frequently in our engagement to date, that moving through downtown and within downtown can be challenging. There's parking issues, and so we're looking at identifying some key areas where we can perhaps introduce some parking structures which could alleviate some of the surface parking need and support more activity downtown. There's a future transit exchange at the courthouse, which will change some of the transit movement and transit patterns and better support transit in the downtown. There's a 6th Street multimodal transportation network, our corridor, that's under consideration. There's the 6th Street Bridge, which is now moving ahead. So there's a lot of interesting things, both challenges and opportunities with transportation and movement downtown. We have identified on the map, I won't go into detail, but we've kind of looked at ways to reinforce some of the green streets and cycling patterns downtown. So we'll be happy to talk to you about some of those details on the boards. Density is an interesting discussion because there's very many ways you can kind of look at that in a downtown area like this. We know that, as Nancy and Marianne mentioned, the growth has been more rapid than anticipated. The projected growth is fairly substantial when you look at these numbers in the downtown area. This could mean, 3,000 to 5,000 more people by 2041. That's 1,500 to 2,500 additional units. If you translate that into kind of a typical 4-story apartment complex of, say, 70 units, that would be about 35 new 4-story apartments to kind of meet that need in the downtown area. So that just gives you a little bit of a framework or sort of a scalable understanding of what that might look like. So does it all happen downtown, or which parts of downtown are best suited to manage this growth? That's something that needs discussion and needs your input on. So we've just kind of looked at 3 different approaches, which I won't get into a lot of detail here, but different approaches that when you go to the boards and look at it, it's where does density best occur in the downtown? Is it around Harmston Park? Is it along the riverfront? are there areas within the downtown core that you feel could manage some growth and some density? So we have 3 different approaches, and they sort of scale up in density. So the Old Orchard Heritage Interface is also a question we just wanted to address to perhaps elicit some feedback on what you think about heritage conservation. Currently, there is no heritage conservation in Courtenay. There's the beautiful neighborhood with some incredible old buildings, which could be redeveloped. Do we want to preserve the old neighborhood and its character, and how do we go about doing that? So there are processes that one could implement. Creating a heritage conservation area would require special permits if there were changes, additions, alterations, but it's a way to really identify and preserve your history and some existing heritage buildings in that neighborhood. So placemaking, and this really refers to all the public realm opportunities in this downtown area, including the riverfront, Harmston Park. How do you deal with strengthening the experience of the streets? What are the key areas that we can increase and strengthen plazas, public gathering areas? Duncan Mews was mentioned in the playbook as a key node within the downtown that needs to become a public gathering space. So how is that best managed and dealt with? What are the street market options, and where should they go? So the 4 planning districts, as you saw on that first map, were the riverfront, the downtown, Fitzgerald, and Harmston. So we'll go through those one by one fairly quickly, because again, a lot of the information is on the boards, and in a way, we'd probably prefer to engage with you more directly on some of the questions you might have. But I think, just for some framework, the downtown, or the riverfront, as changes are underway and changes will continue into the future, have some real opportunity to bring some public opportunity and ecological and environmental opportunity along the riverfront. There's also archaeological considerations, there's kind of historical use of the riverfront, which can all go into this revisioning of that zone in the downtown area. It's interesting when you look at this map, just in terms of the ownership of the lands along the river. The city does own considerable holdings along the river area, and then Central Builders also is a big landholder in that area. So in the long term, if that site were to redevelop, get repurposed, what are the opportunities? What are the opportunities within the city-owned lands? There could be significant change there if you think, sure, we're planning 10, 15, 20 years into the future. There's definitely going to be some evolution and change of that whole waterfront zone. We looked at, and maybe I'll just get back to this one just for a second, and I think a couple of those opportunities are going to be just waterfront access, and I think there's both opportunities on the north, very close to Philbrook Center here, where we can create a better connection from downtown to the riverfront, and then I think 6th Street will also be a very key connector down to the waterfront. We looked at a couple of options, just kind of looking if and when the area south of 5th Street Bridge could potentially be redeveloped and what that might look like. And we've created 2 kind of contrasting perspectives on that. The concept 1 is more of a quiet, passive, residential-focused waterfront where you would have a riverfront trail, but there would be just really residential uses along the river. A second perspective could be a much more active urban waterfront where you bring more density, you bring some mixed use, you have some restaurants and commercial activities that front onto the river to really bring a sense of the downtown to the river's edge. So very different visions, but both retain ecological waterfront edge, both provide some public access to the waterfront, different kind of amenities or uses between the 2 schemes. The downtown core. There's already a great kind of downtown structure in place, the way the street networks work, kind of the emphasis on 4th, 5th, and 6th as kind of key streets and kind of the themes of those streets that have been developed. So there's really some good core ideas through the playbook as well. What can we do towards implementing some of those ideas? What are the other opportunities that might exist in the downtown area? So 5th Street, of course, is considered the heart of downtown. What's the long-term vision for 5th? Should it remain a small scale, 1-2 story building to kind of keep the traditional character of what's there? A lot of the zoning there is already for 4 stories, so people can come in, as you've seen, and build 4 stories with a commercial base. One could go up even further if one felt that density along a street like that was necessary in a mixed-use format, still with commercial at the base and residential above. What's the preference? What do you think would best support a vibrant downtown? So the 3 approaches: keeping it kind of low scale, allowing 4 stories, or potentially up to 6 stories, with maybe the upper story set back. What are the opportunities for the public realm? Should there be a consideration for permanent or partial closure of the street, or event-based closure? Should there be more pedestrian focus, opportunity for street fairs and markets? What's the vision for 5th as we kind of move forward in this planning effort? Duncan Mews has been on everybody's radar for a long time. It's a little bit of a challenging street in terms of its grade and slope condition. As a large gathering space for markets and things like that, I think the grade is prohibitive for those kinds of activities, but it is I think it's a great opportunity to think about more of a passive pocket park, where it might even be a terraced park that sort of steps down towards 5th. Perhaps it's something that really engages the gallery and the library, and it becomes an outdoor gallery space, an outdoor reading space. Maybe it's for smaller gatherings. Maybe there's a little movie night out in the pocket park. There's all kinds of smaller programming elements that could occur there that could really help to create a vibrant little neighborhood green space. The cultural core. There's already this incredible opportunity right outside our door here with the various cultural buildings that exist here. What can we do to create a better public interface with those buildings? Perhaps a cultural square, something that terminates 4th Street in a more significant way. Place for, again, some cultural expression, perhaps some art, perhaps some historical references. And then I think from this location, there could be a really great opportunity to connect back down past Philbrook Center down to the waterfront as a key connecting element that connects downtown to the edge of the river. And I think, along with that, I didn't mention, but I think the opportunity, perhaps even within the surrounding parking areas, to increase the parking opportunity, create some parkade structures, perhaps with a commercial base facing the river, but some kind of increase in parking that will also help support the downtown activities. The Courthouse Transit Plaza is another opportunity that already exists in some ways, but I think could be enhanced, the little green space in front of the courthouse. And really, I think the connection from the end of Cumberland could be much stronger through that diagonal street, connecting to 6th, as it's becoming, perhaps a more significant multimodal corridor. And then what can we do with that open space, that green space, to create a more vibrant public gathering space? And then on to Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald is a really interesting street. It's kind of a gateway street into the downtown. It has the bike lanes. It's quite wide, so it becomes a little bit of a challenge to cross, I think, for some people. but what can be done in the public realm to improve that condition? What can we do in terms of future land use in and around Fitzgerald? Perhaps the corners of Fitzgerald and 4th, 5th, and 6th can become more significant nodes in the downtown area. And really drawing the neighborhoods of downtown and Harmston Park together, rather than Fitzgerald feeling like a bit of a divide between Harmston and downtown. And then Harmston Park, both as a park and a neighborhood. I think the park is, I think from what we've heard, it's quite underutilized. It's kind of used more as probably a neighborhood park, but really I think could become a significant park for the whole downtown. If programmed well, could hold events, could have a whole variety of uses within the park. And it could involve street closures, if maybe you've seen in the diagrams. But it could really be a driver to kind of enhance that whole neighborhood as it gets programmed and built out. We presented a couple of concepts for the parks, again showing just some different attitudes or approaches to what could happen. And this idea in particular was the idea that we close off Harmston Avenue to regular traffic. It would still be needed for emergency traffic to move through, but it would create kind of a plaza space or more of a hard surface urban zone that would kind of bookend the one side of the park. The adjacent property to the west, or rather to the east, which the city owns, could become a redevelopment site, perhaps some community uses at its base, residential uses above, more expansive public parking within the podium, creating a bit of an amphitheater condition towards the park for concerts or events, and then a really kind of extensive park program with community gardens, dog park, kids playgrounds. Perhaps the properties to the west side of the park could also be redeveloped as multi-story buildings with commercial uses at its base as well. Perhaps a daycare, perhaps a corner store, perhaps a coffee shop, to really begin to enliven that park experience. So again, all possibilities, and you can weigh in on what your preferences or ideas are. Option 2 isn't so radically different apart from not closing off Harmston Avenue. It decreases the kind of the opportunity to engage the building to the east, but still provides an expansive park program, could still do on the west side of the park some commercial uses or daycare or whatever program seems to be most appropriate. And then density around the park. What do you feel about increased density? Should it be 4 stories or more? Should it be townhouse? What's your feeling about density in a location like that? Should it be more mixed use, more commercial opportunity? A lot of ways as an urban park opportunity, sometimes the idea that there's more homes, more dwellings in and around a park like that really can help to activate the park. It can make it feel safe because there's always people looking out at the park. So in the evenings and at dusk, it doesn't become a scary place to go. So I think there's all kinds of considerations when it comes to what kind of density feels best around that park space. So I think that provides you with a little bit of an overview of some of our thinking around this comprehensive area. Again, I think it's important to think about not just the districts, but how the districts link together and how this whole area works together as a whole, kind of reinforces the vibrancy that we're trying to create in the downtown and really accommodate this need for growth, for housing, improve transportation, improve the public realm. I think it's an incredible opportunity. There's, I think Courtenay has great bones to work with, and I think there's just, incredible opportunity to continue to work towards meeting some of these goals. And again, I think a lot of what we're trying to propose is ideas that can be implemented. We're not just thinking about high-level ideas anymore. We're really wanting to work towards finding ideas that everybody can get behind and that we can, go to city council with and get some budgets for and really start implementing some of these concepts. So I think at this point we'll kind of conclude the presentation unless Nancy had anything else to say. We're all going to be here mingling around the boards. I think we're open till 7, is that correct? So we're open till 7, so feel free to stay as long as you want. We'll try and answer any questions. And again, there's also the online survey that you can look at and provide input online. And the boards will also be online, so you can revisit any of this stuff just at home on your computer and continue to give feedback as perhaps more ideas come along. So thanks very much for, again, being here. This is a really exciting, I think, for Courtenay, and exciting for us to see the turnout, and look forward to your opinions.